Naming a sequel is kind of an art form of its own. Too Fast, Too Furious. That's art. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. That's art. Xenon the sequel. Well, maybe the movie isn't art, but the title is art. No matter what movie you're making, there is one thing you should always follow when naming a sequel. Okay, so imagine your ideal viewer. Now give him a funny shaped head, lock him in a basement and call him John. There we go, that's now your new viewer. He has to understand from the title alone that it is a sequel and what it's a sequel of. For example, the sequel to the Da Vinci Code is called Angels and Demons. How the hell is he supposed to know that Da Vinci has anything to do with some biblical creatures and which one you should start with? He'll be very confused, and you don't want John to be confused, okay? Calling it Da Vinci Code 2 would basically fix everything. Everyone will know it's a sequel to the Da Vinci Code, and also that you are not a very creative person. If you want to spice it up a bit, you could call it like Part 2 or Volume 2 instead. It's kind of a scale where Part 2 is more Godfather Part 2. A bit more of a serious vibe, maybe got some jazz and mafiosos in there. Like, you wouldn't see someone steal an eyeball in a movie called Part 2. Volume 2 is almost the opposite, where if no eyeballs pop out during the runtime, then you are honestly calling it the wrong thing. Pirates of the Caribbean do this, which is why I picked such a fitting song. Every movie is called Pirates of the Caribbean and then some random thing after it. It's pretty cool, it gives a bit more character than just adding a 2, but it is pretty impossible to know what's a sequel of what. How the hell is John supposed to know that Dead Man's Chest is a sequel to The Curse of the Black Pearl and not the other way around? And how are there 2 sequels to At World's End? That sounds like it should be the last one. On the other hand, you have something like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, where I do think even John could figure it out. First, you go into the Spider-Verse. Then you mess around in there a bit and you go across. And then finally, when you're finished, you go beyond the Spider-Verse. I like this, because it answers everything you would want to know. First, there is Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle. Then there is Jumanji, The Next Level. It all makes sense. The only time it's okay to call something Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Man's Chest is if the prequel is just called Pirates of the Caribbean. It's like Top Gun Maverick. It's the original name with a little bit of extra on the side, so it sounds like a sequel.
I'm a Maverick.
But, now you can't make a third movie. Because John and we get super mad. Terminator 2 Judgment Day. This is for when you want a cool name, but you also kinda want people to understand what's even going on. Star Wars does it, Scooby-Doo does it, but it's important to know that even if you call it Interstellar 2, only stellar vibes, people will just call it Interstellar 2. This goes for every sequel. I mean, I don't think many people really call it Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets when Harry Potter 2 is right over there looking fine as hell. When you add a 2 and a name, people will care even less about what it's called, which I think makes the method kinda pointless. Also, the names become way too long, like Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones. Holy shit, that's not worth it. So then, if adding a 2 is boring, and adding a name is just confusing, and adding both is kinda meaningless, then there's really only one way left. And it is pretty awesome. You may have realized by now that the first question is pretty easily ticked off. Making a title that sounds related to the prequel should not be very hard, and it's not. But making a title that sounds like a sequel while ignoring Method 1 to 3 is a bit hard. Some people succeed though, maybe by sneaking a 2 in there, or in some other way make it very obvious that time has passed. Madagascar became Madagascar Escape to Africa. Now that's just beautiful. Look at that, it's Madagascar, and also look at that, it's a sequel. 3 men and a baby turned into 3 men and a little lady. Holy shit, that's clever. It even rhymes. Bonus points for that. The Fast and the Furious became Too Fast, Too Furious. Whoever came up with that name, probably Vin Diesel, deserves a raise. And I'm not talking about his height. This is kind of Method 4, but with a bit of a twist. If there is already a number in the name, then why don't you just increase that number a bit? I'm talking about the whole 9 yards that became the whole 10 yards. The 21 Jump Street that jumped in your ass and became 22 Jump Street, where the new address is a new place. Ocean's 11 became Ocean's 12, that became Ocean's 13, and then went back to Ocean's 8 for a redo. I think it's a very simple but powerful way of naming a sequel, but honestly, just use the one you like the most. Now I want you to give me some of your best ideas for what a sequel could be called. And I've got some of my own though, so I can start. Baby Driver, that will turn into Baby Drove. The car crashed and now he prefers to walk instead. 7 will turn into 8. Deep within the Old Testament, they find a new sin and people just start dying again. Whiplash will turn into physiotherapy. He hurt his neck like way too much from playing drums in the first movie, so now he has to try and get back on track. Before the final movie, called Prescribed Exercises,